Yo, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to tackle on a little bit of tension up here on this upper back. Now, the interesting thing is that you can actually see some of the visual cues up here near the rhomboid and see how it pulls in the infraspinatus fossa area, which is around the shoulder blade on the lower portion, mid to lower portion. And it actually made the shoulder move, so you can see how the shoulder is kind of creating some movement, and this is usually due to the fact that we have a lot of densification in the area, which is going to cause a lot of tension all the way around. It could even cause tension to the rotator cuff. And another thing is as we are palpating through this area, we want to make sure that we are working the global tension. So that means working the lower back and even the upper back. And right here we are testing and just trying to see if we find any audible cues that might be in the intercostalis and the erector spinae area. And as you can hear, there's slight audible cues, meaning that there's going to be quite a bit of work to get done here. Now the client themselves are experiencing a lot of pain only on the right side of the body, hence why we are working on here. And right around this area, you can really get a clear picture of how big the densification truly is around this shoulder. But not only am I going to be talking and giving some audible guidance, but I am also going to let it play out and just get some nice flow and just to test out some of the new audio equipment that we're using, which is the Rode mic. Now right here, what we're doing is we are bending back the arm and then trying to detail the subscapularis, and we will use different modalities with the hands, knuckles, and even the elbow, and possibly even some Tuxen therapy, which I know I did in this video, but I'm not sure exactly where. But I'm going to go ahead and let you enjoy the video for a moment. If there's any keynotes, I'll be sure to let you know. It's very important to note that whenever you work around the erector spinae, that you are not putting pressure on the spine. So as I'm putting pressure near the middle of the scapula and on some of the erector muscles, which is, they are like right next to the spine, which is known as paraspinal. So as the erector spinae get pressure, we have to make sure that we aren't applying pressure directly to the spine. Although they may feel some pull towards that area, they got to be very communicative so that way we do not put any pressure. And I let clients know that if they feel any tension whatsoever, to make me aware of it almost immediately, because again, it doesn't matter if we're doing a video, the key element is that they get the most relief possible. And so having that communication is one of the most key aspects when it comes to the way that I style my massage. So as of right here, you can see that we're palpating and we're actually finding that pull going through the rhomboids to the intercostalis, and the intercostalis pulls all the way out, and it seems like it's pulling towards the teres major and possibly even the serratus anterior. So now what we're going to do is we are going to change the angle, and we are no longer just going to be working from the opposing side over, but rather we are going to sit down, get a little bit of a lower angle, and continue to trace this tension. And you can almost see a ball, almost a band as well, that is banding from the erector spinae, which is in the middle of the back, over to the lat, or even the serratus anterior. But as we palpate, we'll be able to find and root this tension and try to alleviate it through manual manipulation and different modalities. But the first process is always palpating. Now, in this case, what I did was I heated up my heated scraper, and so what that's going to do is it's going to bring a thixotrophic effect, which is basically meaning heat. It's just going to heat up the area. As it heats up the area, it'll go ahead and relax, creating a parasympathetic response, which is rest and digest. And as it relaxes the area, this allows us to scrape even more deeper in the area. And then I can go ahead and palpate again and check to see if I feel any relaxation happening, which it looks like it's really, really coming down nicely. And as we loosen up the serratus anterior, the lat area, you begin to see this interesting visual cue that you can actually see a lot of the tension and how it's really pulling from underneath this tattoo area. It creates so much tension that it's honestly very visual, and I'll probably use for a shorter description of what we did during the session. But here's a close-up look at what we're palpating over on the serratus anterior side and the latissimus dorsi side. And you can see that band even more clearly on this side. Now what you just saw was a form of cross fiber friction using my knuckles, and then we're just doing effleurage all the way through, following the flow of Langer line. If you ever have looked at or have been interested as to why sometimes I go away from the blood circulation and sometimes I go with the blood circulation, it's due to the fact that I'm working with Langer line theory, which is trying to go with the flow of the fascia. It helps, in my opinion, in my experience, it has helped clients with deeper pressure, and it makes it a lot more relaxing to work with deep pressure, because if you go against the Langer line, it actually is a little bit more painful. Now here we are, we're going to be going in with the fascia blaster, and one of my prongs is broken, so it won't hit unless I use all three, and I press in very deeply. But just to avoid any tension and any pain, we are making sure that we're using the correct side. The fascia blaster is kind of like my shotgun, kind of just spreads out and it'll hit a whole bunch of different structures at once. And judging by the feel of it, I can then justify whether I need to detail the area a little bit more or if I can move on. That's like the best way to describe what I use the fascia blaster for. And then again, we're using the heated scraper for that thixotrophic effect with some scraping. Now, as we work the global area, meaning the lower back and the serratus anterior and lat, you can now see how the visual cue of the densification in the shoulder area has reduced. But not only that, we can trace it upwards. You can see how it's kind of pulling up here by the rear delt, which is going to be the teres minor. Just to make sure everything is good, we moved into Tuxen therapy, which is hammer therapy, and we use these taps to inhibit parasympathetic response to the body, making it much easier to work. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start prepping up for some myofascial decompression. So that way we can decompress some of the fascia, trace it out a little bit. And so that way the blood circulation can open up. And also, not only that, but when you're doing massage therapy with just your hands, it's going to be putting a lot of positive pressure, meaning you're pressing in. So by bringing in these cups, what we're doing is we're pulling apart, meaning it's going to help with the relaxing portion, because one, we're going to be doing static, so meaning we're going to leave them where they're at. And we'll leave them on for about 5 minutes. So the other factor, like I mentioned, was that it's going to be using negative pressure to pull apart some of the fascia, which is basically just another plane of attack. When you're pushing inwards to the fascia, you're putting a lot of pressure in the body. Well, this is pulling it apart. So it is a much different way of relaxing the body, aka myofascial decompression. Myo means muscle, fascia is connective tissue, and decompression simply means to pull apart. But like I mentioned previously, we'll leave these on for about 5 minutes. and afterwards we'll go ahead and review to see how the tissue looks. Some people claim that colorization doesn't play a factor. In my experience, after 5 minutes, if an area is purple, it typically means that was really bad or it needs more work. And usually if it's around the same color as the skin, it means that area is now open and we've done our part, and the body can now get into the portion of it relaxing and recovering. Right here you can see that there is a little bit of red areas, meaning that there's probably some more areas that we need to work on. Around that tattoo area, it's a little dark, which is what we expected due to the fact that that's where a lot of that densification was. But we go in, we polish one more time. The visual cues that we saw earlier are basically gone at this point. Now, once again, guys, I am John of Greater Therapeutics. Feel free to like, comment your ideas, please, if there's ways to enhance this to make it better, and we will catch you on the next one.